What's up, guys? It's your boy Tavon Cross, and I'm here with Mando. And today is not only the second episode of the Nerd Podcast, it is also May the 4th be with you. So, I'm here with my friend, Brock Warren. And today we're gonna just pretty much talk about all things, Star Wars. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Well, let's see. Should we talk about first? Well, let's just talk about Star Wars in general. Brock, if you want to go first in your Star Wars experience, you could.
Okay. My Star Wars experience. I guess that's talking about my first, introduction to Star Wars. Let's see. The first movie, I'm pretty sure I saw the original trilogy. From A New Hope, like all the way through. To Return of the Jedi. My dad's a huge fan of Star Wars, so he sat me down when I was little, and I watched them all through. And then because I saw them in 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. So I really enjoyed the originals and seeing the prequels growing up. I watched them when I was little and stuff like that. I've always loved Star Wars. Star Wars has always been my favorite thing, and I love everything about it. It's been so just even increasing like now, because now we have sequel trilogies. Now there's Star Wars everywhere. I love that because now we're getting so much coverage of this beautiful thing. So yeah, no, definitely Star Wars is extremely important to me, and yeah, I love it.
All right. So I guess how I got introduced to Star Wars. Funny. The first movie I actually saw was I didn't actually see the original trilogy at all. The very first Star Wars movie I ever saw was actually Episode 3, and it was just like I started like out of order, like because like my parents didn't really have all the movies. All they had was just Revenge of the Sith, so that was literally the only thing I would watch. It wasn't until I was up one night and they had like a Star Wars marathon, and I actually think it was on May the 4th actually, and I watched the only thing they had on was New Hope, which was weird. But I watched New Hope, and then I remember my mom taking me to the farmer's market, and there was this one old lady who had like this box called Star Wars, right? And I'm like, Mom, can you get that for me? And it was the original trilogy, but the thing was that what the lady told me, she was like, oh, I'm so sorry, my son lost the third one. So all I had was the cover of Return of the Jedi and no tape, and no VHS tape. And to make me feel better, she gave me Episode 2. So I had Episode 4, 5, and 2, which didn't make any sense whatsoever. So I watched New Hope again, and it was I actually watched the special edition, like the actual special edition on VHS. And yeah, I was watching 4, 5, and 2 pretty much, which made no sense whatsoever. And all I had was just the cover of Return of the Jedi, and I was kind of bummed out because I'm like, oh, I may never see this movie in my life. So, couple years into the future, the Phantom Menace is re-released in 3D. I remember I have the poster in my room, and I remember going into the movie theater. It was packed. Like, it was like really packed. People were like had their toy lightsabers, people had their face paint on, it was crazy. And I'm just sitting here, I'm like, bro, this is crazy, this is actually insane. Look how many people, right? And watched the Phantom Menace, that completely blew me away, and that made me love Star Wars even more. So like I said, growing up with the Clone Wars series, watching and actually owning the DVD movie. And then my mom bought me the complete saga. Well, what was the complete saga was 1 through 6 on DVD. So I had all the movies now. So I watched Return of the Jedi for the longest time. I think I was a teenager when I watched Return of the Jedi for the first time, and man, I was blown away. That is why Return of the Jedi is always my favorite Star Wars movie of all time. Um, but yeah, that's how I got introduced to Star Wars by Episode 3, and yeah, now I'm here. Like I said, I have my Mandalorian helmet, and yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Um, so things to talk about. Well, all right. I guess we should talk about Clone Wars.
I guess so. Yeah, we can go. Yeah.
Okay. So for those of you who haven't seen Clone Wars, yeah, we're this is spoiler warning, by the way. You've been warned. I'm gonna give it a few seconds because you know.
Skip ahead like a couple minutes.
Yeah,
Like that, yeah.
Okay. Full spoilers. All right. So this season probably had to be the best of all seasons. Definitely. From the start, it was like strong. Middle was boring, but the end slowly picked up, and that's what's in. Yeah, I watched today's episode, but the thing is, how I watched it was I actually started part one. I watched part 1, 2, 3, and then I watched the last one. And man, the last episode was, I would have to say, is the best episode of the series. And it's just, and it was great to see Order 66 again, but through like the eyes of the clones and through the eyes of Ahsoka. And I like the clones' perspective is because like when you watch Clone Wars and you watch it like all the seasons, you see how much these clones are, how much personality they have, and all these different other clones, and you can just see the like relationship they had with their Jedi generals and their commanders, and it's just really like watching it from the beginning is like something like it's a bond they had, and like seeing it now that the bond is just completely broken is amazing. What and this whole reason why I love Clone Wars. And like I said, like we were talking in the last episode, how it was canceled, and it was like a big void that just was like gone for a while, and now it's over, which is like crazy to me because it's like watching that. Like I remember when I was just sitting at my TV, like being 9 or 10 years old, watching that Clone Wars movie, which was like the introduction to the whole series, and it's so crazy to me. So, yeah, like I said, this season will have to be one of the best seasons ever on Clone Wars, and especially the ending. I really love the ending to it. So, Brock, you want to give your thoughts on season 7?
Yeah, I really liked this season. I really did. This final season was really, really strong. I remember the beginning, and the first 3 episodes were really, really good. The middle had the sisters and all of that. That was sort of there. But, we never saw them again. So I'm not necessarily complaining anymore. Not that I was, because even so, he was pushing Ahsoka's story, and it's funny, even that arc was used for a purpose. these last few episodes, like The Phantom Apprentice, and this last episode were, like, they were amazing, man. Like, they were everything that, like, I thought they would be. Everything I wanted them to be, and everything that, like, they really lived up to the expectations that set themselves this season. And I'm just so proud of them for making it work, man. They really made it come together, and it was just amazing, really. It was so good.
But yeah, Clone Wars definitely had definitely influenced me a lot. You know, being a fan and being a viewer. I just love Star Wars, and it just makes me love Star Wars even more. And yeah, Clone Wars definitely did a big thing on that, and especially I loved the ending because, like I said, spoilers. They showed Vader, like they showed a Clone Wars animated Vader, which was awesome, and it was terrific, and it was well done. And I like the ending because it's like we know, like, okay, they go their separate ways. Like, it doesn't really need, like, they don't really need to say anything. Like, they just go. And, like, seeing Vader picking up the Ahsoka's lightsaber, and, like, he just doesn't have any words, and he just looks at it, and he turns it off, and he just walks away. And that was very powerful because it was like, he's so far gone. Like, he's at a point where it's like he's at a point where he already lost everything, and he's now a prisoner to cities and prisoner to this whole empire that he started. And it's like, him looking at the lightsaber was like him looking at his past, and him turning it off and turning around was like him finally leaving his past. And that's what I really took from that. And it's very powerful. Like, it's a very powerful scene. And I wish they would have animated Rebels like that, because Vader would have been so cool. But yeah, that's what I liked about it, was like seeing Vader. So yeah. All right. So speaking of May the 4th, we also got the gallery, which is the making of The Mandalorian, which I actually watched after I watched Clone Wars. And it was actually really, really good. The first episode was basically all the directors that worked on the episodes were just sitting at the table, and they were just talking. Like, talking about their own experiences with Star Wars, and their own experiences with meeting George Lucas, and their experience in general with working on The Mandalorian. And it's great because what I took from it is, like, they could have just had one single director just direct the whole thing. But they were like, if we're going to do a live action Star Wars show, it has to be done right. And having more minds than just one, and having more opinions than just one, actually works really well. So that's what I really liked from the gallery. And as for favorite director on The Mandalorian, I would have to say I think Taki is probably my favorite director. I liked his episodes. They were action packed, and Taki's just a crazy man, and I love his energy, and yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I think the gallery was also dope. Alright, so we talked about the gallery. Alright, well, let's just talk about things Star Wars, basically. Actually, I know exactly what we can talk about. I was talking to Brock a couple days ago, and I asked him on which which Star Wars character was better, Anakin Skywalker or Luke Skywalker. And I said Luke, and this one said Anakin. So, now we can actually debate on who is better, Luke or Anakin Skywalker. So, I'm gonna let you say your opinion about Anakin Skywalker. So.
Okay. So my favorite character in Star Wars is actually Darth Vader, which is funny because I know Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader are the same person. But Anakin Skywalker is my favorite Jedi. And he's my favorite Jedi because he's not my Jedi. He's not my favorite, like, story behind him and who he is so intriguing to me. You know, you have Luke, and Luke is incredible. He's, you know, the universal hero of Star Wars. I think what's so cool to see with Anakin is that, you know, seeing the originals, we see Darth Vader who's this ruthless, you know, intimidating, imposing figure that leads the Empire, you know, and through the prequels and all this other media for the Rebellion, we get to see Anakin Skywalker and what makes him into that. And I think seeing Anakin's tragic past with his mother and he's seeing him, you know, and Padme together and stuff like that, I think all of that intertwined with his story makes him so interesting to me. Not to mention that he's probably one of the most strongest Force wielders in general, not user. I wouldn't say he was strong like Force user, but wielder, I think he was very strong, extremely powerful, you know, especially with a lightsaber. I think maybe one of the best in Star Wars, period. I love Anakin's personality, yet, you know, sometimes he can be very, you know, hot-headed and impulsive and maybe even whiny sometimes. But, you know, I think seeing that in those past movies, like Attack of the Clones and stuff like that, kind of sets up, again, all, like, story-driven. So, you know, all of those personality traits are there in him for a reason, because that's how he was persuaded. Because, you know, Anakin looks to him for a father figure, and, you know, if you watch the movies, you know the. But something about Anakin's always clicked with me, and I've always loved him. Well, Anakin's always been my favorite.
Alright, so it's my turn. So, yeah, Luke Skywalker, like I said, has always been my favorite character. Like I said, Return of the Jedi is one of my favorite movies is because of Luke Skywalker. And I'm not saying that I don't like Anakin Skywalker. I mean, everybody loves Anakin. But I feel like Luke is just like... He's like the symbol of true, like, heroism. He seeks for adventure. He gets that adventure. But like his father, he has his time when he can be whiny and impulsive, and he just, you know, questions everything, you know, like, oh, why should I do this? You know, I don't think I can really do that. And it's always spoke to me because he always said, like, he would always say, you know, things, you know, oh, that's impossible, like, you can't do that, like. But it wasn't until Return of the Jedi where after, like, he lost to Vader, you know, that really changed something into Luke. And it's like, okay, I have to actually leave all that adventure stuff behind and actually grow up and actually be who I'm supposed to be. And Return of the Jedi symbolizes that because in the beginning of Return of the Jedi, you know, he goes to Jabba's palace and he shows off his powers a little bit, and he walks in unarmed at first off, thinking that he can take on Jabba, and then he almost gets nearly killed by the Rancor. And it isn't until when he gets his lightsaber that's where like he really becomes, you know, the Jedi he is. And Luke, I would have to say, learned more about the Force and the concept of the Force, and he actually used the Force as an ally. He had a big trust in the Force, and that's one thing Anakin didn't have, was a trust. But Luke had that trust and he had that understanding of the Force, which was why he was able to beat Vader and ultimately bring him back from the dark side of the Force. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's why I like Luke. Even though he can totally be Anakin in a lightsaber fight, though.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, if you ever been to the... So, if you actually want to go into this, I would compare it like this. You want to have Anakin and Luke age, right? So it's equal. So what? We have Return of the Jedi Luke, around that age, full Luke, Revenge of the Sith, Anakin Skywalker. And even to say that, if we're saying Revenge of the Sith, Anakin, it would be in the context of him before he pledges his allegiance to Palpatine, right? So before he becomes Vader. Because past that point, it's not Anakin, it's Vader, right? So we're talking like the Count Dooku fight Anakin Pop. That versus that Luke, I don't know. Maybe. Anakin was powerful. I don't know. I'm not undermining Luke because he beat Darth Vader. Though I do think Darth Vader was holding back in that Return of the Jedi fight. But Luke obviously. But I don't know, man. I don't know. I've seen some people talk about it. I'm not sure.
How I see the outcome of the fight, I see, because Anakin was obviously, you know, Form 5 user, which is, you know, aggressive, and, you know, he would be the one to attack first, and Luke and Luke would be fine with that. He would be fine with that because he would just go on his, you know, defensive, and like I said, Anakin, you know, going at it, and it's all about time. Because you see, Anakin could go all out and like completely like pummel Luke around, you know, toss him around. But the thing about Luke, the more time that's being wasted, and the more like energy he has, like literally, if you see in all Luke's fights, his fights are usually long. And the longer the fights are, the better he gets, because he's learning from his opponent's mistake. Like, I would have to say the biggest example would be the Darth Vader fight, where Vader once was coming at him with like an onslaught, but Luke was able to, you know, kind of predict some of the moves he was making. Hence getting and he got the high ground twice. One from using his aggression, and the second one not even using anything and just completely flipping out of the way, getting the high ground. And what I see the outcome, like, I'm not saying Luke would walk out totally unscarred. Like, he would have bruises. But the longer it takes, the more he would become accustomed to Anakin's fighting style, and he can pick him off. And regarding with the Force, Anakin would try to use it as a weapon, while Luke used it for knowledge and defense, never for attack. So, yeah, that's why I think Luke would win.
Okay. That's a valid argument. That's valid.
But like I said, this is all my opinion, so haters don't hate on me. That's just from what I have. But it could end either way. It could end with Anakin, you know, being Anakin and using the dark side, and that could probably overwhelm Luke. And yeah. So So that was that argument. It wasn't really an argument. I think after this, I'm probably gonna watch Empire of Dreams, the original trilogy documentary, because I think what Star Wars fans forget about the whole Star Wars is that it was created from scratch. Like all this, all the aliens and ships you see, like all that was created by one person, and that was George Lucas. And I feel like we as Star Wars fans forget that. Yes, it's owned by Disney. And are they doing a good job? No, they're not. They're not doing a good job. But, besides Disney owning it, it was created by one man. All this all the Disney canon, all the shows, the comics, the TV shows, everything you see was all designed by one man only, and that was George Lucas. And that's what people forget. Like, literally, this man was coming out of an age where movies were, like, kind of bad in the 70s. It was coming out of, like, the 60s where they had their, black and white noir films, and it was like something like needed to change. And here was a man willing to risk all of that because nobody supported him. Not even the studios of 20th Century Fox just wanted the Star Wars movie to be shut down. Like, they just did not care. But this man put it on the line to make Star Wars what it is today. And he made all these characters. He made all these worlds because that's what he loved and that's what was in his heart. And him, by making Star Wars, changed the way movies are just completely made. From special effects, from just acting in front of a blue screen or green screen. And I'm talking about things we do today with the Avengers and Jurassic World and all the innovation stuff. Like, that was all done how many years ago? They just didn't have the technology like we have. But, I'm not saying I like the sequel trilogy because, to be honest, every trilogy has its flaws. Even the originals, they have their flaws. But I think what what Star Wars fans really don't understand is that, they don't really have the power to control anything. Like, they're like, oh, I would have done this differently. Oh, why they have to do that? Well, yeah, that could have happened, but there's nothing you can do about it. So I don't know why you're arguing about it. And it's just like, like, this is, like, you guys are literally arguing over a sci-fi space opera. And it's like, what are you doing with your lives? And I'm going to say it right now. I love the prequel trilogy. Doesn't mean I like some of the characters of the prequel trilogy, but I love the prequel trilogy. I grew up watching the prequel trilogy. I like the sequel trilogy. I don't love the sequel trilogy, but I like it. Last Jedi, though. Last Jedi can die very slowly. And, of course, I grew up, and I also love the originals. So it's like, no trilogy is perfect. There's no perfect trilogy. Take X-Men, for example. That is not a perfect trilogy. That trilogy is awful. It sucks. No offense to any X-Men fans out there. Come on, you've seen Last Stand. Like, we all seen Last Stand. Like, we all agreed that's bad.
Yeah.
Well, at least it wasn't Dark Phoenix.
Yeah.
I still haven't seen Dark Phoenix.
I had to speak to that. Yeah.
That's a video for another day. But yeah, you know, I think we should take the time and just thank George Lucas for creating this world that seemed to be impossible and totally, you know, unable to do. And he was like, you know what, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it my way. And that's what he did. And we, at Escape Films, thank you, George Lucas, for giving us the childhood and giving us the imagination and the great escape from our lives so we can watch the battle of good versus evil, the dark side versus the light side, the rebellion, the resistance, the Empire, the First Order, the Separatists, the Republic. We all say thank you for creating this world. So, that's going to do it. My name is Savon Cross. This is Brock Warren, and we'll see you in the next one.